why do you want to build a personal brand? How does that, one, benefit you? How does that, two, benefit the people that are going to experience you? Because I always kind of say, a personal brand is the stamp of value that you deliver to others. There's this misconception it's all about your whole personal life, and it's yes, there are elements of your personal life, that's why it's called personal brand, but it doesn't have to be your private life. I know lots of brilliant LinkedIn content creators. I don't even know what their partners, kids, what anyone looks like. But I feel like I do know them a bit more on a personal level in that sense because of how they share things. And that's connected to coming back to your own purpose, mission, vision. What's my objective here? What do I want to achieve by building my personal brand? Who do I want to influence? Who do I want to impact in that sense? Who do I want to attract to me? Who do I want to be the obvious choice for?
Good morning from beautiful British Columbia. My name is Shelley Doyle, and you're listening to Rediscovering Connection. If this is your first time listening to one of my podcasts, then welcome. This podcast has been such an amazing journey for me. This is episode 21 with Aarti Parmar, and all of the episodes have been extremely different. And I've really been finding my voice as I've been going through this journey, figuring out what topic really is in my heart and my soul. And rediscovering connection is something that I have been doing in my own life for the last 2 years, reconnecting with beautiful individuals who've been part of my life, getting some recommendations from some friends of mine on who I should have on my podcast, and a few people who I didn't know at all. And I've kind of just dipped my toe in the water to connect with these new, beautiful souls who are doing some great work in this world. So essentially, it's all about rediscovering connection with ourselves, with each other. And I'm speaking to researchers, facilitators, community builders who have found ways to rediscover connection that's very different, that's new, that's innovative, and hopefully you shall learn a thing or two. So this episode is with an old friend of mine, business networking colleague from our St. Albans Day, Aarti Palmer. She is a personal branding specialist. So we really go deep in this episode to talk about how our personal brand is kind of an external representation of who we feel inside, and how to make that an authentic representation, and how we can help our personal brand to feel good on us. I really hope you enjoy this. Aarti was very generous with her insights, really opening up the curtain and letting us see the work that she does with her clients to help them to find the personal brand that they feel proud and excited about showing to the world. So welcome, enjoy, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome, Aarti. How are you?
Oh, I am wonderful, and it's just so lovely to reconnect again. And this alone is the power of personal brand, right? How many years ago we connected, stay connected, sort of, seeing each other's, being on each other's radar on LinkedIn, and then here we are.
Beautiful. Yes, indeed. And LinkedIn has really been where I have seen you and your personal brand shine through. And you're one of only a handful of individuals whose posts I always see and like a little bit envious, in all honesty, because they're just always so like a beautiful representation of you. Like they feel good to receive without kind of ickiness of sales. It's kind of just very natural. You do this well.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. That means a lot. Really, like, intentional time and effort does go into those posts, so it means a lot to get those encouraging words back. Thank you.
Mm. So how has your journey been really to find your personal brand? Because when I first met you, I think you were involved in your parents' business, the Bang Olufsen business, and then
Yeah.
since then you kind of weaved your own business out. So how is that journey to, I guess it's once you find your own personal brand, then you're like, wow, this is something I'm really passionate about, and this is something that I know that I can serve for other people.
Yeah, that's it. And that's quite a big question. How has it been? I think it's been honestly, it's an introspective journey. That's probably where it really starts. And it's really what, probably in the last 7 to 10 years, maybe 7 years or so, since you're getting more awareness around personal brand. And definitely in the last 2 years, it's become more and more and more of a thing. And I remember a few years ago where people were like, oh, so what do you think is going to be the trend for brand and business and stuff? And it was always this thing like, really important, build your personal brand, build your personal brand, your personal profile. It's going to be equally as important, or if not, more important than also building your business brand, because they are so interconnected. But coming back to your question, gosh, I don't think there is a thing of, well, today I'm going to start my personal brand journey. It's been going on. It's more of, how have I become more aware that I am a brand, and what am I going to do about it? Because I've often had business owners saying, "Oh, should I start my personal brand, or I don't want to?" And my answer is always like, "You already are a personal brand. It's now about, how are you going to get really intentional about getting known for what it is you actually want to be known for." So we've always have been personal brands. We already are representing something in that sense,
I love
right?
that. Let's just dive deeper into that. How you're already a personal brand. How do you want to start becoming known for what you are?
Mm, yeah, yeah. There's that very famous saying by Jeff Bezos, your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. And what I like to do is take that a couple of steps back and say, a brand is a combination of created perceptions. And it is those perceptions that form associations and emotional connections to your brand. So what we really need to do is start thinking about, what beliefs are we forming in people's minds, so when we are out of that room, that they are saying what we want them to say about us. And that's probably a good place to start. So when people are out of that room, are they actually saying what we want them to say about us? And it comes from us, right? Whatever we put out there is what people are going to know and believe about us.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. And this just touches on so much of the work that I do to help people reconnect with themselves, because if we don't know kind of the pivotal stories that have really shaped our worldview, if we don't know what stories are really alive for us that we want to be sharing, if we haven't done that kind of the work, then when we're in company, those stories are not going to be naturally flowing.
Mm,
And I guess that's when people just start becoming passive, kind of passively involved in conversations, and they're not proactively expressing themselves in a way that they want to be seen. And this is so important for people who move location, who the people in their lives do not know them, they haven't got that background of them. So we need to really be reconnecting with ourselves, so that people can get to know the real essence of you.
mm,
So important, so important. So I'd love to just get a little bit of a sneak preview behind the scenes of like how you would work with clients who are unsure of what their personal brand is. Maybe they've been in business a few years and they're realizing that actually they are their spokesperson. Like, how do you
yeah,
get under the
yeah.
skin of it and really help them to get out of themselves what their personal brand might look or
Mhm.
feel like?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a really good question, because I can tell you, majority of the time when people come to me, inquiry call, or networking, that kind of thing, or, and they're like, oh, do you know what, Artie? I just don't know how to show up on social media. I don't know what to say about my business. I'm not articulating it very well. I don't know what kind of content to put out there. So nobody really actually comes to me saying, Artie, I need brand strategy, ever. It's always these other things. And what that actually means is that, in essence, they don't have clarity around their own, well, their brand narrative. And that brand narrative is actually a combination of their business and personal brand. They aren't two separate things, because, especially if we're service-based businesses as well, right? Because if there's somebody who's delivering that service, it's going to be connected to the brand in that sense. So in terms of when I'm working with somebody, first and foremost, what I do and help them understand is what brand is. There's so many different definitions, so many different thoughts about branding. I've been on calls where, like, I really, I'm so stressed about my logo and my color palette. And, for me, I'm like, it's the last thing you need to be stressed about. What you really want to be thinking about is, what are your brand fundamentals? What do you stand for? What's your essence? What's your personality? All of these things, because then it's the brand that will inform the branding, which is the whole sort of, logo, messaging, visuals, graphics and color palette and typography and that side of things. So coming back to, so my first step is actually helping them to understand brand and the role it plays in your business. Because what you may want for your business and what a competitor may want, it's two completely different things. Everyone's got their own different journeys, values, beliefs, stories, experiences, expertise that they bring to the table, even if they are a business that is delivering similar outcomes. So first and foremost, we need to understand, who are you? Well, what is a brand? And then who are you as a brand? I always say, the business sells a product and service, and the brand is the identity that attracts people to the business.
Mm. And I
Product.
love that word. I love that word attract as
Mm,
well, because this is the whole thing with, I guess, soul aligned businesses. We're not looking to sell, we're looking to attract people into our energy, people that are
yeah.
aligned clients. So
Mm,
we're not selling, we are serving. So I
exactly.
guess in that way, as a personal brand, it's a way for you to show yourself, to
Mm,
attract those ideal clients into your orbit,
absolutely.
um, and in a way that feels really good
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah, and it's a form of expression, isn't it? In that sense. And coming back to attract, what then that also does, it doesn't feel like such a, oh, this is so hard, that kind of thing. When you're in that energy of attract, because you're pulling people towards you, as opposed to push, 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 because push, 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 it's hard work, isn't it? Whereas when you really understand who you are for, who you're serving, why you're serving them, why you, in that sense, you then start to also eliminate who you're not for,
Hmm.
and therefore giving more space for attraction.
Beautiful, beautiful. Which is why niching is so important. I was part of a hackathon a few weeks ago,
Mm.
it's for Island Health here on Vancouver Island. And it was I put a challenge into it, which was how to combat loneliness on Vancouver Island, which was selected
Ah,
by Island Health as a wild card, which was amazing. So it was a huge opportunity. I got to pitch my idea. I built a team, and over the course of 48 hours, we came up with a solution, which
ah.
we did reach the finals, which we then presented to a room of like 300 people. We didn't get any further, but I was really, really stoked to have got that
Yeah,
far, because it gave
congrats.
me brilliant practice in front of a good number of people, and great networking opportunity. But one of the really big takes I got from that was how challenging it is to create a solution for the general public, because
Mm,
that's what it was, and they wanted you to be as inclusive with your solution as you possibly could.
right.
And I went away from there with a lot of reflection. I've spent weeks reflecting on it and just thinking, gosh, I feel blessed that I can now kind of go back to my niche, which is really like expats, repatriates,
Yeah.
people who move, people that I really understand the problems that they're facing,
Mm.
And I think down the line, I will definitely be looking to expand this out to encompass and be accessible to a lot more people. But niching just makes our life easier because we can really become masters within that niche.
Exactly. And it makes your audience's life easier. You know, if they are looking for something specific and they're going into Google and stuff, and then they've got, you know, 8, 10 different options, and then they've got the one that is actually really niche down to what it is that they really want. It's just an easier pick, isn't it? You're helping them
Right.
save time, and we know how time poor we all are anyway. So when you're already, you know, eliminating and you're outmaneuvering your competition through, and I say ethically outmaneuvering your competition, you know, through your own niche and through your own strengths and stuff like that. At the end of the day, we're here to serve our audience. So if we make their journey to us easier, then they're going to love us even more.
Mm. And I guess thinking about that journey and thinking about making it easy, there's so many tools out there where we can express our personal brand. And I wonder, in my work, I'm really trying to eliminate um, spreading ourselves too thinly. Like maybe when we've got virtual assistants and they can be publishing on our behalf and responding on our behalf, the game might change. But when we are solopreneurs, actually having too many different platforms can consume so much of our energy. Do you work with your clients in that way to decide which platforms are actually the right fit for their personal brand?
Yeah. So coming back to how I work with my clients, so I've created a proven brand maximizer framework that I take businesses through, whether it's the one person business or and I only mainly work with owner managed businesses, so I'm not in the corporate space and stuff like that. But regardless of what size they are, so some of the people I work with, you know, they've got a team of 150, 300 people. Some of them are the one person business. But what is the key thing behind all of this, whether you are managing your platforms and stuff, as I'm taking them through the platform, it is about, you know, getting deeper into understanding the fundamentals. So the internal strategics around the purpose, mission, vision, values, all of those kind of things. And then we've got the external around the positioning, customer identity, tone of voice, and USPs, and all of those other external things. Once these things are pieced together, this is what I then call is a brand narrative starts coming together. Once you have that and that understanding, that will then start dictating, oh, that's where my audience are. They're not on TikTok, they're actually on LinkedIn. And I've had clients who've got a bit of presence on TikTok, and it's almost like, what are you doing there? You know, kind of thing. When actually, when we've looked at their sort of all different audience clusters, and that's the other thing, you know, we don't just only have one audience profile. Majority, a lot of us businesses also have what I would call audience, different audience clusters. And it's okay to talk to them separately
In different places.
in different
Yes.
places. And you know, I've had
Mm.
clients that, but I've only, and I'm like, no, it's okay. You can even create landing pages for your different audience profiles. But you know, the overall brand and what you stand for, why you're doing what you're doing, the mission, purpose, vision doesn't change, but who you're serving for this product or this service, that can change. That's okay. That's fine. And
Mhm.
it will, you know, in a business cycle, this will change. So therefore, understanding that customer identity will help to then dictate where you need to spend your time and effort and money and energy according to your vision of your short, medium, and long-term goals. And because some of this work doesn't get done with business owners, it feels like I'm all over the place, I'm hitting a brick wall. You know, my competitors are just running circles around us, that kind of thing. It's this deeper work, these fundamentals that need to be looked into, and it will start drawing out a picture.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, what's coming up for me there is just thinking about my personal brand and visibility. And on Instagram, for example, I very much speak to my in individual clients, kind of
Mm.
the expats, repatriates, location independent entrepreneurs. And then on LinkedIn, I'm more speaking to corporates and HR leaders to bring me in to deliver workshops to their globally mobile workforce.
Yeah.
So yeah, I unintentionally, I'm doing this a
You're
little bit.
doing
I
it.
can definitely get better.
Yeah, yeah. And the beautiful thing is when you've got a brand, you've got that clear, distinctive brand voice and you know what you stand for, that then beautifully will weave into everything else that you do. So even if you are aiming for the individuals on Instagram or, you know, the corporates on LinkedIn, that should, you know, and will then weave into the messaging and stuff. So there is this sort of like an overarching purpose, mission, vision that links to that.
Mm. And I honestly, since working in PR agencies for other brands, for myself, I've never got into scheduling, which does mean that social media can then become quite time consuming.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
but I think my issue with scheduling a little bit is I do like being more authentic, and like when I get some inspiration, just like creating something, putting it out there, try not to think too desperately hard about it, but then it can really be a bit more time consuming. So I wonder if you've got any guidance for other people who are finding that polarity between authenticity and scheduling and how that plays out.
Oh, I've got a confession to make. I don't schedule. I actually don't. Simply because like you, I'm very much like when I'm feeling in flow and inspired, saying that, but I am consistent with it. So I know I am going to be posting 3 to 5 times a week on LinkedIn on specific topics and stuff like that. Because if I know I'm about to launch something, there's a lead up to what I want to be bringing to other people's awareness about this, and you know how I've got into it, the story, da da da. You know, because you can't put everything in one post either. So that's not to say that, you know, there is some background work going on. So even like if I'm in the tube and I'll get ideas at the most random time, like really like, oh my God, that's an amazing thing to sort of kind of say or whatever. So if I'm on the tube, it will start going into my notes. And then when I've come home, you know, I've gone for a coffee, I'm like, oh, that's another, it starts getting pieced together. And then I'm like, right, okay, I know this will be a good day to put this out, this out, this out. So yeah, I don't have this big plan of scheduling. However, I do work with clients and, you know, they do have a team and all of those kind of things. So we do look at sort of brand pillars, content pillars, things like that. So then their team can actually have a bit of a structure of like, what do we, you know, what do we want to be known for and how do we now execute what we want to be known for? So, you know, that takes a bit of planning.
Mm-hmm.
So then their team, because you know, for some social media posts, there's a lot of, well, for a lot of there's a lot of education that needs to happen. So when there are sort of more educational things, some of it a little bit more generic, but in your obviously in your own tone and stuff and personality and essence, those kind of things can be scheduled because that doesn't matter if it goes out in a January or a March or you know that kind of thing. So there are things that yes, definitely can you know do a bit of planning, schedule that in. But then for me and in the kind of space that I'm in and the kind of work that I do, I get inspired, you know, from my clients, from something I've watched on TV, an experience that I've had with a brand, and I'll talk about it. I get inspired just from going from a walk and something comes up,
Yes,
you know.
totally. Mostly from a walk in
Yeah.
nature. Totally. I hear you. And I guess one really big thing is about how noisy everything is. Like we
Mm,
go online and it's just noise. Um, and I wonder if you've got any advice for people who they want to be authentic to their own personal brand, but they also want to kind of break through some of that noise. Is there any real nugget that you found that you're like, this really can work to help you cut through?
yeah, yeah. And yeah, you're right. It's so noisy, and it is about sort of thinking, firstly, why does this actually matter to me? Because, we've been constantly told you need to build a personal brand, you need to build a personal brand. If you yourself aren't connected to why you want to build a personal brand, that's going to be an issue, because you know what it's like when somebody just tells you to do something. You might do it for a little while and be like, okay, I'm disconnected, don't really care, don't know why I'm really doing this. Really important to connect to why do you want to build a personal brand? How does that benefit you? How does that two benefit the people that are going to experience you? Because I always kind of say, a personal brand is the stamp of value that you deliver to others. There's this misconception it's all about your whole personal life, and it's yes, there are elements of your personal life, that's why it's called personal brand, but it doesn't have to be your private life. I know lots of brilliant LinkedIn content creators. I don't even know what their partners, kids, what anyone looks like. But I feel like I do know them a bit more on a personal level in that sense, because of how they share things. And that's connected to coming back to your own purpose, mission, vision. What's my objective here? What do I want to achieve by building my personal brand? Who do I want to influence? Who do I want to impact in that sense? Who do I want to attract to me? Who do I want to be the obvious choice for?
And I love what you mentioned there for about how do you want people to experience you?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So then, in terms of cutting through the noise, you don't even then have to try and cut through the noise, because when you start piecing these things together, it becomes an extension of you on social media. I've often had clients, oh, who should I be online and offline? I'm like, be the same person, because there are going to be times where someone's going to experience you online and they're going to be like, oh, can we jump on a call? Or they'll meet you at a networking event. I mean, this has happened to me so many times. And recently, I was at an in-person networking event, and they're like, oh, you're Aarti Parmar, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I am. Had no idea who they were, but it just felt, she was just like, I just feel like I know you. And like, I love your post and what you're putting out there and stuff. At the same time, I didn't feel like, oh, violated or whatever, because I've chosen to put out what I've put out intentionally to create perceptions around, brand building, brand visibility, personal branding, brand mindful branding, all of those kind of things. So it's all been in my control, in that sense. So when it starts to actually feel like, actually, I don't mind if I say this online, offline, that kind of thing, you then start creating your own voice, your own distinctive style and personality and that kind of thing. And it's not going to just happen overnight. It takes time for people to get a sense, of your style and your essence and what you talk about, how you talk about it. There's dime a dozen brand strategists out there, loads of them. But I know, what makes mine different, what makes me different, and I've got no qualms. In fact, I'm like, it's great that there are some, if they are, brilliant brand strategists out there, because if we're all on that same page around helping people with their mission and purpose and that, we're just creating more of an impactful world. I can't serve 8 billion people by myself. Yeah, so I'm quite happy there's all these other brand strategists out there, but it is about finding your own style, and that's going to take a bit of time as well. You may end up a bit of trial and error and that kind of thing. One of the things that I felt worked really well, and I still do this if it's new stuff and whatever, I'll go and observe what others are doing and seeing how it's landing, how are they presenting it, what words are they using. And that's not for me to go and copy their words. I'm just kind of observing and then see how it makes me feel, seeing it written that way, the imagery that would I feel comfortable using a bold, vibrant background? No, I wouldn't. That's not me. So it's also about feeling into what is you, what isn't you,
I
in
love that.
that sense.
It's reminding me of like PR days, doing competitor audits. Yeah, I love that for personal brand. And something else you said that really struck me was mindful branding.
Yes, yeah.
I really like that. Let's talk AI.
Hmm.
And I have definitely seen a uplift in content since the emergence of AI. How do you feel about AI content?
Mm.
Um, can it help us? Can it hinder us? And do you have any ideas of how it's going to play out as we shift forward and it becomes more and more adopted?
Mm. Well, firstly, I can spot an AI post a mile off, and I think we still can, right? I don't know about you, but I can spot it a mile off, especially as it's kind of come in, and then you've seen that person's post before, and then suddenly it's like you're like, yeah, that's not them, that's not their voice, that's not what they've talked about before in that way. So
How does it make you feel then when you
okay.
see that it's clearly AI? What does that
Yeah,
change your
part of
perception
me,
about that
yeah,
person a little
part of
bit?
me makes me feel cringe. You just it's part of me feels like, was that a bit lazy of them? Because it's a brilliant tool, right? It's great. You can go in there and put this, and then but then just talking about cutting through the noise, now you're getting even more generic. I see so many generic things, and I'm like, you're now not helping your brand, you're hurting your brand. I think it is a brilliant tool, but it's about also knowing how to use it to enhance your brand. But in order to enhance it, it still comes back to knowing what are your brand fundamentals? Who are you as a brand, as an identity? So you can maybe use it as a tool, as an extension of, to refine a message, that kind of thing. I've used it. I do use it because I'll then, put in what it is that I want to say in my way. And then, I've asked it for a couple of prompts. And that's the other thing, is about giving it effective prompts. It is about, sort of mastering that. I haven't mastered it. From what the little sort of trial and errors that I've done with it, when you get really clear on the prompts, it really is great for guidance to accelerate something quickly. We may spend like hours and hours thinking about something, but you can use it to help create and brainstorm even ideas and stuff like that. So I think it's, like I said, I think it's a brilliant tool used well, when it's used well. I had a conversation with somebody last week, actually. We met up in a cafe, we went for brunch, and he was telling me about his new, oh, that was a, did you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
AI generated
Yeah.
thumbs down.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't like what I was saying about AI. So we went for brunch, and he was telling me about his new business idea. And he was just like, oh, I've got my, purpose and mission. And I was like, oh, I'd love to see it. So he pulled out his phone, showed me his website, and I could see the statements. And I was reading them, and he was waiting for what my reaction was. First thing I said to him was just like, you've got this from AI, you've got this from Chat GPT, haven't you? And he looks at me and goes, yeah, how did you know? I was just like, just the 3 minutes before that, how you were talking to me about your brand, your business, and the personality, the enthusiasm behind it, it's not expressed in these words here at all. There's quite a disconnect.
Mm.
And that's because the work hasn't been done. He's got some thoughts in his mind about, okay, this is what, and then he's probably written, write me a purpose statement. But AI is going to do that. It can write you beautiful, it can write you lots of purpose statements and stuff like that. But what AI won't do is delve into your why and be able to challenge your beliefs and probe into that, and understand your story of why you're doing what you're doing, what has brought you to this specific journey. It's not going to delve into all of that. Therefore, it's going to give you this very surface that the other 5 million people can also have access to. Whereas when you've
Yeah,
all of
the tone is just it's just different, isn't it? It's not a personal edge to the tone.
Exactly. And when you already have an existing online presence, and not even just online presence, you're already meeting people offline and stuff, and then suddenly, that tone changes because of because you're using AI in just a very generic way, it gets noticed. It gets
And
noticed.
I wonder, like I wrote an article recently for a magazine called Island Parent, all about looking after your social needs as a working parent. And I felt compelled, after I'd spent time writing this article, I actually put on the top of it, this was not generated by AI. They didn't print that, but
Right.
sharing it with the editor, I felt compelled to
Yeah.
write it. And I do wonder, going into the future, do you think people are going to have to be transparent about their AI usage?
In a way, I hope so, because it takes time, doesn't it, to piece something like that together with emotion, with personality. Um, yeah, who knows? It's going to be an interesting time for publications, PR, all of these kind of things. It's going to be just so easily accessible, and it's going to get better.
Exactly. Like last year, I was involved in a TEDx, and one of the speakers, Peter Scott, he was talking all about AI, and it was actually before it became mainstream, because it was last year. And he does speak at quite a few TEDx's. Like
Mm.
he's a recurring TEDx speaker. One of the things he says is he doesn't use AI to generate his talks. And he's like, I know that my talks could be better if I did, but I've kind of said this now, so I can't
I
really go
can't.
back on it. Kind of made a stand,
Yeah.
whilst acknowledging that he could probably find words easier using AI if writing isn't necessarily his thing. And I guess, coming from a communications background, I have no excuse. Like, I can write. I'm blessed that I've had that um, background. Whereas I guess for a lot of people where writing doesn't come as easily, then they might be let off for leaning on AI some more. And I guess in that respect, it balances the playing field for everybody.
Yeah. That's a good point. That is a good point. And I guess it still comes back to getting that essence of the brand back in there, even if you are using it and writing isn't your number one top skill, which probably isn't for most of us, right? But if you don't want to get lost in the noise, it has to come from a place of authenticity, your own values, your own journey, your own expertise, knowledge, stories. AI is never gonna, well, and let me not say never, but AI isn't gonna know your story. It doesn't, it's not going to piece that together. You're still going to have to do that and then use the platform to enhance or refine in that sense.
Mm. And I'm just thinking about another of the TEDx speakers from last year, Candice, who I have had on my podcast, actually, Candice Neville. And she was invited to speak at that TEDx. She did still have to audition. So leading up to the audition, she was thinking about her speech. And then early one morning, she just woke up with inspiration and wrote it.
Mm.
And I guess in a way, AI is maybe encouraging us not to um have that kind of, oh God, I know I need to do that. I know I need to do that. And then trust that we will find the words.
Mm.
Once we know what we need to do, we will find those words, what we want to do. And maybe it'll be that you sit down in one session and you just write it out, and that's your first draft. I don't know that this is a leading question, but that's just what's coming up for
Yeah.
me. Like, are we, and I have a spiritual mentor we spoke about when we connected last time, and
Yeah.
he had some real concerns with AI, because when it first came, I was like, oh my goodness, Bill, this is so exciting. You can ask it anything, and I was really excited. And he's like, but What about if you ask yourself and just allow the
Mm,
response to come? How, like, challenging that. I'm like, oh, that's
yeah.
a good point. So wise.
Yeah. And this is, I guess that's the bit I get a little bit concerned, because obviously there are pros and cons, right? Will it make people just more lazy? Will it just make people lazy? What's going to happen to people writing books? People would write books with so much passion and so much like, right, and I want to put this out into the world, and they'll pour their heart and soul into it. And now you can go into AI and say, write me a book on, but obviously, again, it's not going to have your personal story in there.
Mm-hmm.
From just from one prompt in that sense. Yes, you can maybe write it and then put it in there, and it may refine it, but yeah, it does. I've had those thoughts like, what happens to that sort of the book industry in that sense as well.
And I guess, again, that comes back to your personal brand. If you've built yourself a brand that is attracting a real niche, and then you publish a book because people want more of you, that's it. Books aren't going to just sell themselves anymore because it's going to get flooded. Everybody's going to have a book, aren't they? If we can,
Yeah.
everybody could have a book. So people then buy the individual, and then that individual sells the book.
Exactly. And nowadays I don't think it's just about, oh, being a published author, I've got a book. It's about, how does that sit in the strategy of your bigger picture, that mission, that vision, purpose. It needs to lead into something. I've had clients where, or inquiry calls where they're like, yeah, I want to launch a book, or I want to create a membership program. And I'm like, okay, good. What kind of presence, audience do you have around you, community? And she was just like, no, I don't really actually. I just wanted to, because, I've been told that I need membership groups. I can make passive income, and, or just make different kind of income rather than the one-to-one. And, or if I've got a book, then I'll get a lot more exposure and visibility. I'm like, okay, who's going to be buying your book? What do they know you for? And she was just like, yeah, that's a good point. They don't really know me for this, but this is what my book's going to be about. And, sometimes people are doing it the wrong way around because of what they're seeing
Mm-hmm.
on social media and getting influenced by that. Whereas, as you mentioned, if they're building the personal brand around, and business brand around something that matters to them, that they're passionate about, that they're really purposeful about, and people are buying into that purpose and mission. We see it all the time, and I advocate brands I don't even buy from, but because I'm just like, what an amazing brand, I'll go and put them in front of other people. Maybe it's just not
Mm.
right for me for whatever reason, but however, I'd advocate them because I'm buying into their purpose, their mission, and that's the power of brand. So if you then are an individual that has a strong, you're advocating a certain really positive change in the world for something or other, that's what people are buying into. And then that then gets granular into products and services and stuff like that. But then when you've got something like that, that's where then really beautiful collaborations happen. That's where then you have that natural journey. Do you know what? Actually, I'm going to write a book now because I know I can bring so much knowledge, and we can, create more of an impact by putting these words out there and educating, teaching people through my book or whatever it is, in that sense, membership, that kind of thing. So now people actually have got more of a buy-in, and it gives them a bit of an identity as well. Like you've got the brand like Patagonia. You wear that, you already feel like you're a certain type of person. It already gives you a certain kind of identity.
I love the brand Patagonia.
Right.
Yeah, just such a purposeful brand. And yeah, it just sounds like one of the best places to work. I think they're all just surfing at lunchtime, aren't they?
Right.
Very cool. And something that was coming up for me then, just thinking about individuals publishing books. I know neither of us are necessarily in this space, but something that I keep seeing recently is people having a chapter of a book. And like I've been involved in summits. So for a summit, you are one of many guest speakers, and then you obviously promote that to your audience. So then you've got maybe 12 or 20 speakers who are all promoting the summit to their audiences. So I guess in the same way, publishing a book where you just own a chapter of it, and then you're standing side by side all of these other experts in their field also, and then you're all sharing that. Yeah, this is an intriguing strategy.
Yeah, yeah, collaborations, right? I mean, you're tapping into various audiences all at the same time. You know, you've got a wider reach. If it's just me alone, whereas when you've got 10 different authors in that same book and everyone's got their own followers and following, and you know, it's got some sort of, you know, force for good. Why, yeah,
Yes.
it's a great way to reach more people and make more impact, and
I saw
positive.
a beautiful post yesterday and it said at the top, it's all about cooperation, not competition.
Absolutely. And it does make sense. You know, if we can, if you are inclined in that way to be a mission-led, purpose-driven, purpose-centered business, and you've got other people who are on a similar kind of path, and you can both impact collectively, why not? Why not, right?
Artie, just thinking about, we are coming towards the end of our conversation. Is there any kind of key takeaway that you think for solopreneurs or people with maybe small to medium-sized teams that haven't really put a lot of thought into their own personal brand strategy? Where could they start? What's like the number one piece that you think, with the weekend coming up, like just think about this as you're walking around the lake for your weekend hike? What should they be thinking about?
Sure, sure. I mean, I always like to say, you know, if your brand isn't clear on the inside, it won't be clear on the outside. So it is about going inwardly. And I'll just leave you with my brand journey wheel. So I'll just quickly share what that is in
Please.
3 steps.
Yes.
So the first one is step one is clarify. Step two is create, and step three is communicate. A lot of business owners go straight to communicate because they're thinking, I want to promote and grow and get sales and make money and all of that kind of thing. But what they haven't done is done the step one, which is clarify. So that is the discover and define. Discover and define who you are as a brand. Honestly, this step is invaluable. When I've worked with clients, what it's done and how it's accelerated not only their journey, what it's done for their own energy, their enthusiasm, the clarity it's brought in terms of to get focused and have that direction. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself, because what comes out of that will then help you to really determine, where am I heading from here? And we all like a bit of, right, where am I heading from here? We don't want to keep hitting brick walls. So, you know, clarify, discover and define internal strategic fundamentals, external. So like I said, those fundamentals, purpose, mission, vision, values plays a massive, massive role in, you know, determining your actions and behaviors. Really, really important. Understanding, what do we stand for as a brand? What are our values? What determines our actions and behaviors in that sense? Moving into create, once you've got that, you know, you've clarified all of this, that will then help to create your visual identity, the logo, colors, typography, or, you know, fonts and that kind of thing. And it will also help to create the kind of services that that your audience actually needs. Sometimes there's a very sort of, right, let's just put this service and product out there, but has any research actually been done? Do we know that the audience, the market needs this? So getting that into the sort of, actually, even as a business, you need to do that research anyway, right? You need to have that MVP and that kind of thing. So knowing that there is some sort of need for the product or service. In that create space, then that will help to create, you know, all of that side of thing, product, services, visual identity system, And then also your social media, your website, because now, like I say, it's the brand that will then inform the branding. And then the branding will help to inform the marketing. So this is where you then communicate. You then communicate authentically, you communicate in a very precise way and concise way to the audience that you actually want to attract and work with, or may not even, and I say audience clusters, that's just not that's not always like your end client. That could also be other collaborators, influencers, communities, networks, that kind of thing. So, it's about then getting really precise about what it is that you want, who you want to attract, and communicating that in a very sort of intentional way. And this is why I say mindful branding, because now you're making really conscious choices about how you're showing up, what you're saying, who to, why should they care, all of these kind of things. So, you're not just coming from oh, let me just guess, let me just put some content out because I've been told to post 3 times a week. It's making really conscious choices about the business, the brand, yourself, how you want to be known, seen, all of that kind of thing. And that all comes from clarify.
I'm just about to start a Substack. So I've parked my original newsletter, kind of rethought what that wants to look like. So I think with this new Substack, I'm going to be really introducing the topic of social well-being and social
Mm.
connection, and the importance of really focusing on this as individuals. Um, have you got any recommendations for me or anybody who may be in my shoes that's about to really, like, I've done the work to define who my audience is, and now I want to speak to them?
Yeah, exactly that. Speak to your audience. It's that emotional connection. It goes beyond, obviously the demographics, but really, what are they feeling? What do they want? What's going on in their daily life? Really take that time to understand that, not assume. Have conversations with the people that you actually want to attract, work with, collaborate with, understand what's going on for them. And
Mhm.
that's such a beautiful connection piece, because then you can start bringing that into your content. And then what that starts doing, it starts positioning you as the person who knows, because who knows how they're feeling, what's going on for them. And when you start addressing that side of things rather than I, when you start
Yes,
addressing that side of things, it's about them. And again,
right.
then it comes, you're pulling them in to then say, right, okay, how can I serve you? This is how I can serve you. It's helping them to feel, and everything's very much about how we make other people feel, right? It's helping them to feel like, look, I see you, I understand you, I care for you. I want to help you from where you are now to where you want to get to. And this is what I'm trained in, or this is, how I've helped other clients. So evidencing that social proof is also important. A lot of business owners are like, oh, I don't want to blow my own trumpet. And I'm like, you need to blow your own trumpet. People need to know that you are, you can evidence your expertise, your knowledge, your results. So when somebody gives you a testimonial, put it on your social media.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to get. Why wouldn't you? That's all your hard work. And what that then does, it then evidences in other people's mind, okay, she can provide from, pain point to solution to transformation. That's what we want. All of us want transformation. So it is really understanding the transformations people want and the pain points that they are experiencing, and you being that vehicle. I like to say a brand is a vehicle to serve, grow, and impact, and you being the vehicle that's going to take them from pain point to transformation. Because when they have the transformation, they become generally maybe, better people, more loving, more kind, more caring, they've got more clarity, therefore they're not feeling low and down and all of those kind of things. And therefore we're creating more of a positive energy.
Mm. And would you imagine kind of one person on the other side? So you're writing and you kind of see that individual person, you're literally writing to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
beautiful. Because I
and
know,
really, really important actually to do that, because it can be quite easy to get lost in, like, okay, I'm starting to write for this person, and then, you know, and then you're like, that's when it starts getting generic. Whereas when you've done the customer identity piece, and we know, okay, it's this is the person I'm writing for today or this month, that kind of thing,
Right.
it just makes it so much more easier, because now you've got them in mind. You know what kind of pain points, challenges, what's not happening in their life that they would actually desire. You can then take them on that journey through your content, through your website, through dialogue when you're at networking events. You know, the number of times I can go into a networking event and share a story and storytelling and narrative is another really, really key part of being able to have dialogue around something that's relatable and relevant to these people as well, you know, in that sense. Because if you just go out and like, I just do brand strategy and I can sell you my brand strategy package, I'll be like, yeah, don't get it, whatever. But it's about making it understandable, relatable, you know, helping them feel understood. And you know, I always say brand is an energy, it is felt. And when you're saying it with such authentic, that genuine, I know where I'm coming from, I know what the kind of change I want to see in this world, I know what I can do for you. All of this, you know, builds confidence in people and builds that, ultimately people buy from trust. And when they feel that transference of trust going on, and that might not just happen in the one meeting you have, but over time from your social posts, and there's that consistency and congruency in everything, that transference of trust happens. And for some people, they need a bit more transference of trust. Some people will be like, oh, I've been seeing your post for 3 months, I want to work with you. Some people, it's been 2 years. But it's important to have that, you know, that's what we're ultimately, where that's when people ultimately buy, when they have that emotional connection. I trust this person, I trust this brand, I trust this business.
Thank you so much for all of your sharings. I do feel like I just want to touch on one final point from our conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago. And we were talking about the transition of a repatriate. And we touched on your experience moving back to the UK after living in Malaysia for a while.
And years.
And
Yeah.
and the getting used to the way that people operate.
Yeah, oh gosh, I still do miss that, where you could just pick up the phone and say, finishing work 7, 8 o'clock, let's meet, you know. Yeah, that was quite a bit of a big shocker. In terms of what's helped me and stuff, it is just probably getting those dates put in advance. Whoever you want to see, who you really, really want to see, just make it happen, you know, even if it is 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months down the line.
And like maybe just getting into the flow of the local norms for people, for
Yeah.
expats who are moving around. I guess it's trying to understand what those local norms and customs are.
Yeah, yeah. Because the other thing I used to do is just call people straight, you know, just be like off the bat, call people when I felt like talking to them, kind of thing. Yeah, that's also like, oh, bit of messaging first, what time is good for you, that kind of thing. So yeah, it is probably just, and you know, there's different groups of friends and family as well, right? And you've got sort of the acquaintances, and then you've got your inner circle where, yeah, they don't care and I don't care what time they pick up the phone and call you and that kind of thing. um yeah, it's probably even just asking each other, is it okay for me to buzz you, or would you prefer if we, you know, WhatsApp or whatever, that kind of thing. And that kind of communication is probably key as well, isn't it, in that sense?
Yeah, especially with new connections when you've
Mm.
been moving, when you've moved somewhere or you've moved back from somewhere. Yeah, understanding that where you've come from is quite different. So thank you for that. Just last piece, I just felt like that was a nugget really worth sharing because I know I really resonated with that experience myself. I thank you and appreciate you for your time. Where is the place where you most spend your time that you think people come find me here because this is really where you see the most of me?
Yeah, LinkedIn, definitely. I'm consistently posting over there brand tips and all sorts, bit of mindset, bit of spirituality, bit of everything from from my brand, in that sense.
Beautiful, and a beautiful brand it is, Aarti Palmer. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, yeah, absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.